going on, gardeners? It's Saturday, May 20th, and it is starting to heat up here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, and that means we will start to harvest our main crop tomatoes soon. That's why on today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 varieties of tomatoes that I will never grow without because they are simply too good for me not to grow every single year, and I invite you to try them all as well.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
When I moved to the coastal southeast a few years ago, I had no idea what I was in for when it came to growing tomatoes. Varieties that I used to grow no problem with my eyes closed when I lived in New Jersey and Pennsylvania simply don't grow here. Our super hot temperatures, our outrageous humidity, and our extreme rainfall paired with the pest pressure simply makes it impossible to grow many of the old standby tomatoes that grew easily up north. So in the past 6 years, I have dedicated an extreme amount of my time to finding the best tomato varieties out there that have the most vigor, that have the most productivity, that have the most disease resistance, and can also set fruit when the daytime temperatures and nighttime temperatures get hot and swelteringly humid, and don't compromise on flavor. So for those reasons, these tomatoes I'm going to give you are some of the best because they have all of those amazing characteristics, but they still taste fantastic. And the first tomato I'm going to share with you is what I think is the absolute best tasting cherry tomato that exists, and that is the Sun Gold tomato. Sun Gold is probably the most recommended cherry tomato of any tomato that I've ever seen, and people asked me to grow it for years. I finally gave in, thinking, how good could this tomato possibly be? Well, boy, did it knock my socks off. You can just eat the tomatoes off the plant like candy. They are that good. They're as sweet as grapes, but they still have a great tomato flavor in the background. The reason why Sun Gold is on my list is because, simply put, it is the best tasting tomato I've ever had in my entire life. It is absolutely phenomenal. Now, it is a hybrid tomato, so it does have really good vigor and really good disease resistance, and because it's a smaller cherry tomato, it has heat set capabilities. It can produce, and the flowers will set fruit well into June and early July here. So it is a very reliable plant. No, it is not the most bulletproof of the cherry tomatoes out there. There are more disease-resistant varieties out there, but nothing can match the flavor of this tomato. Now, if I had to give one complaint to Sun Gold, it's this. Once our rainy season starts up in June, it tends to split very easily. So if you are in an area that gets very heavy rain, you tend to get a lot of losses with Sun Gold because it's very prone to splitting and cracking in rainfall. So for that reason, I'm going to give an honorable mention to the variety Sun Sugar because I already know what the comments are going to say. A lot of people that like Sun Gold also recommend Sun Sugar, and that is the beautiful plant that you see right here. Sun Sugar is a nice yellow cherry tomato. It's similar to Sun Gold, except it's larger. The plants are more vigorous and more disease resistant, and it is very crack resistant. So you may be thinking, well, with all of those things going for it, why are you recommending Sun Gold and not Sun Sugar? Well, that's because, in my opinion, Sun Gold is just a much better tasting tomato. And while Sun Sugar is the superior plant when it comes in terms of genetics and its performance, Sun Gold tastes so much better to me that I have to recommend it over Sun Sugar. However, if you live in a really challenging place that's even worse than mine, like Florida or southeastern Georgia, where it can get even more humid and hotter, you may want to consider Sun Sugar. I grow them both because I like them both for different reasons. I like eating the Sun Gold earlier in the year, and then eventually when the fruit starts splitting and my yields go down, I'm content with getting the Sun Sugar variety. They're about 80 to 85% as good as Sun Gold, in my opinion. The second tomato variety that I will always grow in my tomato garden is the Brandy Boy. Now, back in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, I used to love growing the Brandywine heirloom tomatoes, and they grew great up there with the cooler weather. But here in North Carolina on the coast, they just don't grow here. So I have been searching for the best Brandywine hybrid variety, and luckily over the years a lot of different breeders have tried to approximate the old heirloom pink Brandywine Sudeth strain, which is, in my opinion, one of the best tasting beefsteak tomatoes in the world. So I have tried numerous different Brandywine style hybrids. I've tried Brandy Boy, I've tried Big Brandy, I've tried Chef's Choice Pink, and while all of the tomatoes are very similar to the Brandywine Sudeth and good in their own right, I think Brandy Boy, which is a hybrid developed by Burpee, is the best, and I keep going back to it. I think this is the 8th year in a row that I'm growing this tomato, and I can't get enough of it. The flavor is almost exactly the same as the pink Brandywine Sudeth, except the plant is just an absolute ginormous beast. It sets more fruits, and the fruits are just as large, if not larger. But the reason why I think this is the best of the hybrids is this tends to set the most uniform fruits. I get the most picturesque, perfect looking tomatoes off of the Brandy Boy. And while Big Brandy and Chef's Choice Pink did produce really good tasting tomatoes, most of them were kind of funny looking and really asymmetric and had a lot of little imperfections on the skin that you would have to cut off. And I think I get the best overall quality of perfectly round tomatoes off this. So if you're looking to grow the heirloom pink Brandywine tomatoes, one of the greatest tomatoes on earth, but you need a more vigorous plant that sets more fruit and will have better yields and also has better disease resistance and sets fruit in heat more easily, I strongly recommend the Burpee Brandy Boy. I think it's probably the best out there, and for that reason I will always continue to grow this tomato in my garden. Like I said, 8 years in a row, going strong, and I'm going to be growing it a lot longer than that. The third tomato that I will always grow in my tomato garden because of how fantastic it is the Big Beef tomato. No, this is not the Big Beef. That's not the Big Beef. That's not the Big Beef. Nope. That is the Big Beef right there. Look at that tomato plant. That thing is just a monster. It is by far the most vigorous, indeterminate slicing tomato that I have ever grown. And I think it's really important to show you an overall shot of all the tomato plants next to it. All of these tomatoes were started from seed at the exact same time and transplanted at the exact same time, yet you see how the Big Beef towers above all the rest. Now, I have been searching for a indeterminate beefsteak slicing tomato with 10-ounce to 1-pound fruits for a very long period of time that can stand up to my conditions here and can resist the disease and continue to set fruit into the summer. And the Big Beef has probably been the best performing beefsteak slicing tomato that I have ever grown. The disease resistance is off the charts, the productivity is off the charts, but the thing that really sets this tomato apart from the rest is how absolutely perfect the tomatoes are. The tomatoes are all almost identical in size. They're picture perfect. They have no blemishes. They never crack no matter how hard it rains. They don't split on you. Every single tomato that comes off of this plant is just perfect as long as it doesn't get attacked by some type of sucking bug that will otherwise mar the tomato. So if you're looking for a super productive, indeterminate slicing tomato that can stand up to the most miserable conditions, this is the one. Big Beef is just absolutely incredible, and that's why it's an All-America's Selection winner. It's just, I don't have enough good things to say about this tomato. Is it as good as a Brandywine Sudeth tomato? No, not in my opinion, but it still has that classic tomato flavor. I would give it like an 8 out of 10 in terms of a flavor profile if you want to call the Brandywine Sudeth a 9.5 out of 10. It's still really good, and you will not be disappointed with the flavor of this tomato. Now, I just got back from a 1-week vacation, so I've pretty much left this tomato alone, and I have not hand pollinated any of the flowers on it, yet you can still see how good the production is so far. It's setting more fruit clusters up there. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably take my electric toothbrush and vibrate some of these flowers up here just to get them, give me a little bit more production. But I just wanted to take you in for a closer look and show you how great of a performer this tomato is. I swear by this variety, and it is really one of those backbone tomatoes that you should grow in your tomato garden because it will never let you down. My fourth tomato that I will never grow without is the Rosella Purple tomato, and I grow Rosella Purple for 2 reasons. Number one, it is a fantastic early season Dwarf Tomato Project variety. This is one of the earliest tomatoes that I've ever grown, and it loves our cool late winter weather here in late February, March, and early April. So I grow this in a container to get a massive jump start on my growing season, and I simply carry it inside when the nights are going to be too cold for the tomato to survive, and then I put it back outside during the day. The other reason why I grow this is without a doubt the best tasting of the black or purple tomatoes that I've ever had. I grew Cherokee Purple for years because I loved the flavor, but I hated dealing with the plants because they were so fussy and they performed so poorly here. Now I don't grow Cherokee Purple at all because this variety is way easier to grow and it tastes even better. Yeah, you heard that. It tastes even better. In fact, I have a beautiful Rosella purple tomato that's ready right here, and I need to show you what this looks like. This variety will put out a good number of about 5 to 8 ounce tomatoes. They do have a tendency to split because the skin is so thin, almost like an heirloom variety. But man, when I tell you these are delicious, it's really an understatement. They are sweet, low acid, and on that little tiny Dwarf Tomato Project tomato right there, the yields are pretty fantastic, especially when you consider that that has been growing in my sunroom since January. Now, I won't lie to you, there is a big downside to this variety, and that is it is absolutely pitiful when it comes to heat set capabilities and when it comes to disease resistance. Once the days start even getting close to 80 degrees and there's any remote amount of humidity or rain, this plant will be one of the first to die on you. It's very prone to disease. So that's why I really don't grow this out in my garden anymore, because once it starts raining and the soil splashes all over the plant, it's done. Instead, what I do is I plant this in a container and I just keep it under the soffit underneath my rain gutters by my house to keep it dry, and it actually performs better once the heat rolls in the shade, or at least a mostly shady condition that still gets part sun, and I keep all of the rain off of it. It will do okay for a little bit more, but this will probably be one of the first tomatoes that'll die on me and I'll have to throw it out. So this does not meet my criteria for disease resistance, but it doesn't need to because I grow it as an early season tomato. So by the time June rolls in, this plant is pretty much done anyway. Then I will start more seeds around Independence Day, and I will have this as a fall tomato that I will be able to grow all the way into December. And if we get a frosty night here and there in November or December, I'll just carry it inside the garage and then bring it back out during the day. So this is my trick to extend the season with some of the best tasting tomatoes you will ever have. So like I said, right behind me you can see all of my potted tomato plants that I keep underneath the rain gutter to keep them dry. Those are my Rosella purples, and this is the 5th variety of tomato that I will never grow without, and that is the Siletz tomato. Now, the Siletz tomato is a determinate slicing tomato that was specifically bred for the cool climate of the Pacific Northwest. So, like the Rosella purple, it is extremely prone to disease, but I don't grow it in the dead heat of the summer. I grow it as an early tomato in the early season, so it starts setting its fruit in late February and March, because for whatever reason, this tomato loves high temperatures in the 60s. So this is another great tomato to extend your season early in the year and late into the year and carry you into the fall, even in the winter, if you're able to protect the plant. This tomato has some of the best flavor of any tomato that I've ever had, let alone a determinate style tomato. And just look at the yields on this thing. Look at the tomatoes. Now, I know the plant is starting to look a little bit haggard, and that's because it's starting to get into the upper 80s here, and this plant just doesn't do well in those temperatures. But again, we're not growing it for a summer tomato, we're growing it for a spring tomato. So this gets me the early harvests. And this will, well, this is a kind of a small tomato right here, but this generally produces tomatoes anywhere in the 5 to 10 ounce range. Because I sort of hand pollinated this, it gave me extreme yields, which is then lessening the size of the fruit because it set fruit a little bit too heavily. If you don't let the fruit set so extreme, the tomatoes will be larger, but I'm still getting nice 4 to 6 ounce tomatoes off this plant. And boy, is the taste fantastic. But wait, I'm going to give you a 6th bonus tomato. However, this is going to be the tomato that I hate growing, that I keep growing year in, year out because of how fantastic it is. And that is the Brandywine yellow tomato that you see right here. boy do I loathe this plant, and let me count the ways. Number one, it is highly susceptible to disease because it is an heirloom brandywine plant. Number two, it has the stingiest yields that I've ever seen. The flowers love falling off of this plant, even in perfect conditions. And number three, I've never gotten more than 5 or 6 tomatoes off of Brandywine Yellow, no matter how many years I've grown it, and I think I've grown it 5 or 6 years in a row. So why do I keep growing Brandywine Yellow? Well, simply put, it is the best tasting beefsteak tomato that I've ever had. Better than Brandywine Pink. This is, in my opinion, the ultimate tomato. It is a flavor bomb, and it is just extremely difficult to grow, unfortunately. However, because it is so good, I've just made peace with the fact that I'm going to spend all year growing this, and I'm only going to get 5 or 6 tomatoes off the plant, and I'm just going to have to live with that and be happy with it. So I grow this variety of tomato in the spring into the summer, and I only get 5 or 6 tomatoes all year, and that's all I'm ever going to get. So I savor the tomato when I can get it. If you have better growing conditions than I do, you will still suffer with this plant. It is that hard to grow. But let me tell you, every single tomato you get off this plant is worth the effort. Do not grow it as some kind of backbone plant. It's not going to produce for you very well. Grow it as a pleasurable experience. And I will say one good thing about it. The fruit, for whatever reason, is generally blemish free. It's very large. Each fruit will be around 1 pound in size. And it's also very crack resistant. So I am happy to report that the handful of fruits that this plant will set generally holds up to my environment once they're on the plant, but I may only get 4 to 6 of them off this plant. However, for me, because this tomato is the best out there, it's just worth growing. So if you want to grow a fantastic tasting heirloom indeterminate variety that produces some of the best stuff on earth, grow a couple plants just for fun. Just don't expect a lot for them. And unfortunately, unlike the pink Brandywine, where there are a lot of people that have developed really close hybrids to them, I haven't found a hybrid substitution for Brandywine Yellow. There's nothing out there that compares. When the day comes that I can grow a hybrid that approximates this with 90% accuracy or more, I will stop growing it. But until that day comes, I can't not grow this plant because it's just too good. And that right there are 5 tomatoes plus 2 honorable mentions that I simply cannot grow without in my garden, that I will continue to plant year after year for the foreseeable future until something else better comes along, which will be really hard to replace those varieties that I listed in this video. Now, I know there was a lot of info in this video, so if you have any questions, please ask them down in the comments section below, and I will do my best to respond to them. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification bell so you're notified when we release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in my garden in real life, they are all linked down below in my Amazon storefront link in the video description. So expand that video description and click on the Amazon storefront link to see everything I use that has been successful for me. And while you're there, check out my spread shop link for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
Dale is so relaxed at the beach here in the Outer Banks. We're on vacation. He is having such a good time. He has been such a good boy the whole trip. He's been the best behaved person in the whole house, humans included. He's just been fantastic. He is more relaxed than I've ever seen him before in my entire life. He's getting in the water. He's chasing after the frisbee. I've never seen him voluntarily run into water before, and he has just been the best.